Our guest today knows all about living in the amazing worlds of Gerry Anderson because he helped to create some of them. As a model designer, he worked on the 2004 film of Thunderbirds and, more importantly, with a certain anniversary over the horizon, helped to bring the vehicles, craft and characters of Terrahawks to the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's John Lee! So John, welcome to our top secret podcast base here at the Moxie Hotel in Slough. Thank you for joining us today. Lots of questions to get through here, what with the 40th anniversary of Terrahawks on the horizon. Yeah. But let's go back to the beginning with, well, how did you first get started in the film industry?
So I grew up watching Gerry and Sylvia shows in the 60s and early 70s, and it played a big part of my childhood. I was always making things. I built Airfix kits. I did Meccano. I did all those things, working in a tactile world. I was interested in science fiction, and I loved the work of Ray Harryhausen and people like that. So I had a passion for it. I could draw. I could paint. Through school, I went through the sort of art pathway. So my plans were to be a graphic designer, illustrator, something like that. But in my spare time, I was always making things, always watching Gerry's shows and putting my own slant on things. And with a friend, Steve Woodcock, who also, funny enough, worked on Terrahawks, we started making our own films and miniatures with a view to trying to get into the film industry somehow. Of course, in those days, there was no infrastructure, there were no colleges or universities, so it was a case of, you know, finding out who worked in the industry, making contacts, networking. So basically, I put together a showreel portfolio, met a couple of people who had worked with Gerry in the 60s and 70s, and through that ended up working at Cosgrove Hall Films in Manchester on a series called Wind in the Willows. And that was very kindly, suggested through Alan Perry, who was one of the directors and cameramen on at Century 21. So Cosgrove Hall was my first job on Wind in the Willows, and I was a member of the Fanderson fan club at the time, and I went to the very first convention in 1981, I think, in Leeds. I think that was the very first convention. And through reading the magazines, realised at some point that Gerry had a new series in production, and at one point I believe I read in a fanzine that it actually started production at Bray Studios. Would have been about June or July 82, I read that, and basically picked up the phone and rang Bray Studios and got put through to Mary and asked them if they were looking for model makers on Terrahawks, and she said yes they were, and the rest is sort of history.
That's fantastic. I was watching a clip from Wind in the Willows the other day. I'd forgotten how beautiful that series is.
Yeah, it was a great series. I was a big fan of animation, as I said, Ray Harryhausen and all those kind of fantasy films. So to be working in Manchester, fairly close to home at the time, I'm from Yorkshire, it was a big thrill. It was a family business working on a really special TV series.
So did the Anderson shows, were they, obviously they were a favourite, were they like the favourite amongst all these other things?
I think they were. I think they were. I mean, Thunderbirds was my favourite series. I've got very strong memories of watching them as a repeat in the 1970s when I was a young teen, rushing home from school, watching Thunderbirds at 4:25. Watching them perhaps that was the second time I'd seen them, prior to first viewing. It brought back so many fond memories, sequences from Pit of Peril and, End of the Road, Path of Destruction, all those kind of things. Yeah, that was my passion, the work of, Gerry and Sylvia, and obviously Derek Meddings, because I was interested in making things and I was interested in special effects.
Yeah, there's some wonderful visual images in Thunderbirds, particularly, that just stay with you forever. So you claim to be quite fond and quite well versed in the Anderson shows. We're going to put that to the test right now with a little game that we call Super Identification. We're going to play you a series of very quick, and they are quick, clips from introductions to each of the Anderson shows, and you have to tell us when you recognise one, shout it out. We keep scores on which of our guests know the most, ranging from, I think, Lee Sullivan is the highest grossing winner at the moment. You've only got to beat 1 or 2 points to not be on the bottom. So are you ready to embark on your super identification?
Yeah, so right, here we go.
Yes.
Apologies, listeners and viewers. Let's see how this goes.
Okay, let's give it a whirl.
Twizzle. Tortured. Four Feather Falls.
Yep.
Supercar.
Oh, we're doing well so far.
Fireball. Stingray. Thunderbirds.
7 already.
Captain Scarlet. Joe 90. Secret Service.
Oh, he's doing well.
UFO. Protectors.
That's one that sometimes trips people.
Space 1999.
This is an emergency.
Terrahawks. Dick Spanner, I think. That was Space Precinct.
A place of legend, fabled right across the universe.
That's Cosgrove Hall series. I'm not sure. New Captain Scarlet.
That's right. Well, John, that was an exceptionally good performance there on your super identification. I can officially tell you that you've scored 17 out of a possible 18. There's your little person there to enjoy as you see
Thank
fit.
you so much.
The one you didn't get, you were right, it was Cosgrove Hall. That was Lavender Castle.
Lavender Castle.
Yes.
I couldn't spit it out.
Yeah, it's another one that often trips people up. So did that bring back any memories of seeing those again, even though they were very brief?
It did. I mean, obviously, some of the early shows, Stingray, I was still watching that in black and white when it first came out, and probably Thunderbirds was black and white. But then in the 70s, everything was colour. Thunderbirds particularly, racing home from school on a bike to get home by 4:25, you would often miss the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and maybe you'd come in and it would just be horrendous. That was the...
You've got to get the full theme tune. That's part of the show. So presumably Thunderbirds was the favourite in the Anderson shows.
Yeah, I think for me it was the favourite, and I think it's the best show he and Sylvia made.
Yeah, it really holds up extremely well. And so on the vehicles front, what was your favourite vehicle, whether a regular or guest?
Well, I loved the Thunderbirds main craft. I had the toys as well. Thunderbird 2 was my favourite. So I've got very fond memories. They're baked into my brain. I have some of the pieces at home on a shelf. The guest vehicles in the show, the one I remembered, which came flooding back, was I think it's the Sidewinder from Pit of Peril, the vehicle that walks. The music that accompanied that was very, very exciting. Path of Destruction, the Crab Logger vehicle, was another big favourite.
Yeah.
The Eddie Houseman vehicle, that I think is my favourite episode, End of the Road. I love that whole sequence, the fact we've got 2 Thunderbird vehicles assisting in the help, the recovery. It was just really exciting. And it was all models. It was all kind of believable, even though I knew they were models.
Yeah.
They were done so well.
Yeah, you don't question for a moment that they aren't real.
No.
So you go from watching the shows as a kid to some 15 or a bit more later years. You're now working on one.
Yeah.
What was the experience of walking in there and actually realising, you're working on the next generation of the shows that you've grown up watching as a kid?
Wow, this is a big question. So, I'd been at Cosgrove Hall, so I'd had a introduction to the kind of professional workplace. So I wasn't coming in entirely green. But nevertheless, getting the phone call from Bob Bell saying that I'd actually got the job was something I'll never forget. and him asking me when I could start. I think I started about 2 weeks later after the phone call, so I had a lot of kind of sorting out to do. Where am I going to live? All that kind of thing. Moving down to the Bray area. Getting the letter, getting the phone call was, and still is, something I can't quite put into words, because it meant so much at the time. Still does. It meant so much. It was suddenly, oh, right, okay, my work is good enough to be taken seriously. Someone's going to give me a job. Someone's going to pay me to do this work, which I love and still do. I've never deviated from that dream, which I think is important to say. It was just truly unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And of course, myself and my friend Steve, we both got the job at the same time. We came down together on the train. We stayed in digs together for the first few weeks until we could find our footing. We thought, naturally, that we were not going to be good enough. We had terrible imposter syndrome, as people still do now. You know, occasionally projects I take on, I think, really? Can I really do this? I think that's natural. But very quickly, it became evident that actually it was working, and we were working quickly. We knew what we had to make. We knew the aesthetic. We knew what it had to look like, and that was a big sort of thing in our advantage. And lots of the crew were fairly young, like we were. So it sort of, I'm deviating from the question because it's such a big, it's a massive question.
It's all good stuff. Yes,
it's just. Felt just surreal when I told my friends, when I told my family at the time. It was, what?
And of course, you're now working with names that you would have seen on the end credits of all of the Thunderbirds and Scarlet and so on. So the reality of working on an Anderson show was overwhelming to a certain extent, but also fulfilling, presumably?
Well, both. Yeah. Both. I mean, exciting. It was a dream of mine to work on a Gerry Anderson TV series, and I fulfilled that dream. And I say to lots of, colleagues now, young people that I work with, you have to have dreams. It's really important, especially in the creative industries. You have to think big. You have to be realistic, nevertheless. You can't just think, I'm going to have a go at model making. You have to be able to do the job. You have to be realistic. But you have to dream, and the reason is, if you don't dream, there's never any chance it will happen. But if you dream and think, well, one day this could happen if I do this, you create your own journey towards making that dream a possibility. And working with friends and colleagues helps. Networking, definitely. You can't do this on your own. But you have to dream, and I just think that's really important.
Mm. So you mentioned several iconic Thunderbirds moments there. And when we contacted you and asked for your first Anderson memory, I believe you gave us like half a dozen possible candidates. But the one we've chosen to play you now doesn't involve vehicles as such. Right. It involves a couple of iconic Thunderbirds characters, one of whom in shall we say, is up to his neck in trouble. Shall we play that clip?
Please do,
Yes. See what you think of this.
Oh, God. It's no use. He must have got them, too. If only I could get to the radio.
What would you do then, my friend? Inform your friends at International Rescue? No, that is out of the question, I'm afraid.
Where are the others? What have you done with the others?
I shall deal with them later. But first, I want some information from you. Where is the treasure concealed in the underwater temple?
Water. I've gotta have some water.
Answer my question. I saw you come from the temple with some of the treasure. Where is the rest of it?
I don't know who you are, but please let me have some water.
Tell me where the gold is, and then I shall let you and your friends go. It is a simple choice to make.
Oh, poor Brains.
Yeah.
Yes, that scene still gets to me even now because he's not one of the Tracy brothers. Somehow it would feel better if it was one of them buried up to their necks in sand. But because he's like the innocent scientist, it's more affecting somehow.
Yes, yeah.
So was that as impactful as you remember?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's that thought. I mean, Brains was a great character. All the Thunderbirds characters were astonishingly well devised and written. They were so kind of diverse as well, but Brains particularly. The fact that he's buried up to his neck in sand. We've all done that on the beach. We've all been in the beach, and we've dug a hole and sat in the sand, and we felt that compression on our chest. So I knew what he was feeling. His lips are all charred. We've all had that feeling as well. He hasn't got his glasses on, so he looks different. He looks vulnerable because his specs were his trademark. The blinking, which wasn't always evident in the other shots, it was, and the hood standing there towering above him. It's just really good, a really good sequence.
And is one of the few sequences where the hood is like genuinely menacing.
Yeah,
There's not just this comedy knockabout character that he
Yes.
sometimes was. So going back to Terrahawks, what's the first model or building or whatever that you can remember actually working on?
So I started in September 82, and production had just got underway, and Nick Finlayson was the workshop supervisor. So we met Nick, and the very first thing I worked on was the White House miniature, which was under construction. It was a very small scale model, and I was making parts for that, and very quickly went on to make the interior part of the house that opens up, showing all the detailed pipe work, which was all kind of self-designed. There were no drawings for that. So that was one of the reasons I was employed on the show, was because I could sort of free-form design and build as I went along. So the White House was the first model. I was shocked at how small it was, and at the time couldn't quite perhaps appreciate that the stage was smaller, the workshop was smaller. So that was the first thing I worked on, followed closely by the Mars base, which was used in the first episode, the Mars base, when Ian Scoons was still the visual effects director.
Yeah, so I noticed with some effect shots in Terrahawks, not many, but there's a few times, you see bits or remnants of Space 1999. There's the Space 1999 moon, one of the moon props from Space 1999 was employed, but there's also a section of what looks like Eagle transporter on the side of Space Hawk. Was there a lot of sort of bric-a-brac scrounging kind of going on or scavenging rather, to make those happen?
There was, when we arrived at Bray, there was a space above a staircase in the workshop, and above that staircase, covered up, was that section of the Eagle transporter, which was one of the girder sections. And we didn't think much of it at the time, and it ended up being used in that Space Hawk sequence. The gun that you see in front of that was something that I made, along with other close-up sections of various bits of vehicle. I don't recall there being that many other Anderson props and models. Prove me wrong, I don't know. I do remember that. I remember the moon, which I think was split in two. It had a Earth painted on one side and the moon surface painted on the other, I think.
So what sort of input did you have into the design of each model? And did you ever have ideas that you felt, this is really good, and then people were like, maybe not, we've got this we're going to do instead?
Yeah, there was, obviously all the main craft were designed by Steve Begg. He came on as a designer initially, and then moved up to special effects director. So all the main craft were designed, and they were patterned by various members of the model making team, mainly Peter Tilby, who was a pattern maker. And they were farmed out and brought back as fiberglass sections and then assembled by the model making team. But all the guest vehicles, the Overlander, well, actually Steve designed the Overlander as well, but various guest vehicles, close-up sections, there were no designs really as such. There were sketches, there were thumbnail sketches done by either Steve Begg or Gus Ramsden at the time. And we were left pretty much with a kind of free-form, we'd speak to people about, well, how big were the miniatures? How big did it have to be? Could it be light? Was it going to be heavy? Did it have to be pulled along the ground? So there'd be that kind of conversation. But we were pretty much left to it. There was no time really to create drawings for every single vehicle or set. So they relied on having the crew able to kind of slot into those particular skill sets.
I would imagine in the early days there's probably a lot of activity and no real time to go into too much detail. We are going to play a clip now from the very first episode of the show, featuring a building you have mentioned earlier. This is the Mars base, the NASA Mars base that opens the very first episode of the show. So let's take a look at that.
Great.
Planet Mars. A small step for us, but a large step towards mankind.
Terrahawks. One of the alien ships is approaching our base. We're transmitting the following message in all Earth languages. We are an unarmed geological base. Our purpose here is peaceful exploration of this planet.
Now to capture my stepping stone to planet Earth.
Oh, good stuff. So that's Zelda making her presence known in the very first scene of Terrahawks, in fact. What do you remember of shooting that sequence?
I remember everything about that. So the Zelda ships were essentially sketches that Steve Begg had done as a storyboard, and they were given to myself and Steve Woodcock to build. Peter Bahana made the central hub section. He had experience in fiberglassing and casting, which I didn't at the time. So Peter made the initial hub, and myself and Steve ended up making 12 Zelda ships. We ended up making an initial 6 that were never shot. And then we ended up making the 6 which feature in the episode. And we just basically were told they're about 2.5 feet long each. Off you go. I made 3, Steve made 3. They were made very quickly using acrylic and plastic and EMA section. And they were mounted on rods and shot very similar to how Brian Johnson shot the effects on Space 1999. The Mars base looked really good, actually, in that clip.
It still holds up, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the very first sequences we saw being shot. Shot at high speed, obviously, all the barrels rolling towards the camera. The lighting on that looked really nice. Harry Oakes did a great job. Obviously, he's a genius. All of that comes back. The close-up section of the Mars base, which myself and Steve made in the evenings, because why would you want to go home if you're working on a show like that?
Yeah.
Naively. So we made that in the evenings with wax sections, which exploded. Mark Harris helped out with some of that. So that all comes back, and it's a great sequence.
It's unusually dramatic for Terrahawks. Yeah, it's a strong opening. So how did it feel when you've constructed something and it's going onto the set and it's got to be destroyed? Is there some part of you that sort of went, oh, my baby, or you're like, can't blow it up? Or was it somewhere in between?
This is a question that everybody asks. I'm generally quite happy when things go up in flames. For me, I love the process of making things, and if I get a chance to design things, it's even better. I love the process of creating. I love the process of being on set, helping with the filming or being part of the filming. And, I love watching it all these years later. So I can, when it blows up into pieces or comes back to the workshop damaged, as things regularly did, such as the Overlander and various craft, you just fix them and they go back and you move on to the next thing. So you're kept busy all the time.
Well, the Overlander, I imagine, was a frequent visitor to the workshop, of which we will get to in part 2 of our interview. But we're going to move on to now some questions from our podcast listeners. You're on this thing. Oh, there we go. Right. In our special, I've managed to work it, yes. It's our special Space 1999 lunchbox there, featuring questions sent in by our Podsteron listeners. So if you'd like to dig in.
So I dig in and just actually... So these are real questions.
These are real questions from real people. We've vetted all of them, yes.
So this is from Alex Pass.
Hello, Alex.
Hi, Alex. It's the obvious question, which is probably why I'm asking it, but did he expect people to still be talking about him, did he expect people to still be talking to him about Terrahawks 40 years later? The truth is no, probably. No, I didn't. And it's very nice that people are. And... I'm very grateful. It still means a lot in my career. So hopefully that answers your question, Alex. Also, cheeky bonus question.
Oh.
Is there a particular vehicle or set he'd like to give a 21st century makeover?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good question. Well, some of the main craft, they were repurposed slightly for the Thunderbirds feature film, which I worked on.
Oh, right.
I think there's always a kind of inkling to try and do something slightly different but the same.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the Thunderbirds craft. Although, no, thinking about it, I'm going to change my mind.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
Yeah.
So, Alex, the answer is no. Leave them alone.
Oh, not even a 21st century Overlander.
No, leave them alone. They were of their time.
That's fair enough. Yeah, please dig in. Help yourself to another one.
This question is from Steve Bushell.
Hello, Steve.
A great chap. Apart from, how do you stay looking so young? What part of model making do you find the trickiest or most tedious? Well, thanks, Steve, for your question. It's moisturiser, basically. Keep moisturising.
That's in the second half of the interview. Yeah, we'll get on to that.
What part of model making do you find the trickiest or most tedious? Sometimes the trickiest thing is, where do I start? Because you might have a sketch, a loose sketch, or you might have a very detailed blueprint of what you're making. So first of all, there are 2 starting points. One of them involves a lot of creative decisions about what should this look like ergonomically and creatively. The other question is, how do I make the end result? Where do I start and how do I make it? So there are 2 trains of thought. Sometimes having a drawing, an accurate working drawing, is sometimes easier for me because I know what I've got to make and I can just get on with it. If I've got an element of design, then I've got to think about what I'm doing because I'm then trying to work creatively. So usually it's getting started. What am I making? Have I got creative freedom, or is this what it has to look like? So occasionally I might speak to an art director or a designer and go, okay, you've given me this drawing. Is there any room for maneuver? I've got 3 weeks to make this, or 2 weeks. And often it's yes, there's room for maneuver, or no, this is what it has to look like. So those kind of conversations would happen. So usually starting off is the most difficult. And obviously making sure you stay on track, because the thing about working professionally in the industry is there is a start date and there is a date at which point it's going to be on set being shot, and that generally doesn't change. If anything, that time frame moves closer. It never extends. So the big difference between people that make models for fun and for enjoyment is that there are no time restraints.
Yeah.
So sometimes I yearn for that, but actually I'm always really happy to work in the kind of commercial world where you have deadlines, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Keeps you fresh.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have time for one more question from our little box for this half of the interview.
Shall I pick this one?
Oh, it looks quite a big one.
This is from Hugh Porter. Hi,
Hello,
Hugh.
Hugh.
If you can, what would be some advice you can give to anyone who wants to become a professional in model making for film and television? Good question. Well, you have to be able to make models. That's the first thing. You have to understand what model making is. So I recommend, reading lots of books, speaking to people who are model makers and who are designers and makers, and having a go. Just make things, photograph them, and research your dreams. Does that answer the question? Is that?
I think it does, yeah. Yeah, it's the only way.
And he's got another sneaky question.
Oh, they're very sneaky this week.
Also, what would have been the best decision you have made in your career so far? What would be the worst so far? Oh, this is
Is that one you really want to talk about?
Should we leave that for later? What's the best decision?
Coming on the Gerry Anderson podcast, obviously.
Well, yes. Shall we leave it there?
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Well done.
Thank you very much for those. We'll be returning to our Space 1999 lunchbox next time. But for now, we're going to bring things up to date with a trailer for something that you worked on a bit more recently from Terrahawks.
Right. Okay.
Yes, this is a trailer for a film, which I, to my shame, have not seen. I hear good things.
Sam Bell reporting to Central. Everything running smoothly. Over and out. Rock and roll. God bless America.
Good morning, Sam. Do you want me to cut your hair then?
Lunar Industries remains the #1 provider of clean energy worldwide due to the hard work of people like you.
Daddy just no.
3 years is a long haul,
I know you're really lonely up there, but I'm proud of you.
2 weeks to go, Sam.
2 weeks to go, buddy. I'm going home. Looks like we got a live one. I'm gonna go out.
Okay, Sam.
Leaving Serang, working perimeter.
Do you take anything, sort of any inspiration from the Anderson shows onto your current projects, or is it very much what you find when you get there?
So Moon, I'd been doing a lot of work with Bill Pearson, who was a special effects model maker. Many people know his work, and over the years working with him on many feature films, AVP, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I was working at Shepperton Studios on... it could have been Thomas the Tank Engine, I'm not sure what the series was, but I knew that Moon was in production because I'd seen the full-size set being constructed. And Bill was making props initially on that, making a spacesuit, and then he managed to get the contract to make the miniatures. So he pulled together a team of about 6 people, myself included, and we set up in Bill's small workshop building the miniatures for that film, working with Gavin Rothery and Duncan Jones. It's a great film, really good memories. We worked incredibly hard on that film over a really short period of time. I believe, off the record, the miniatures were built in roughly 9 weeks, give or take, and the model unit shooting, which was directed by Duncan once he'd shot the live action, was shot in about 11 days on a stage at Shepperton. So I was building miniatures. A lot of it was designing and building as we went along again, although there were designs for the rovers. Everything else was basically freeform. And I was also on set pulling models through shots and setting up to camera. So, great memories, really good film. I've got fond memories of that film. I love the movie. It's fantastic.
I'll have to check that out. Oh, now that klaxon means that it is time for our quick fire 5 round.
Oh, God.
No time to explain what this is. Just got 5 questions for you. So here we go.
I'm bracing myself.
Easy one to start with. Terrahawks Hudson or Thunderbirds Fab 1?
Fab 1.
Okay. Bit harder. Sidewinder or Crab Logger? Oh,
Crab Logger.
Crab Logger, okay.
Sorry.
You had to think about that one. Who would you rather have on your side in a tight spot? Lady Penelope or Kate Kestrel? Come on, this is serious.
Lady Penelope.
Okay. Who would win in a fight? Stingray's Titan or Thunderbirds the Hood?
Oh, the Hood.
Okay. Now, the most important question of all. You've been invited to become a Spectrum agent in Captain Scarlet, so you must choose your colour from the Dulux range of paint colours. Are you Captain Desert Wind or Lieutenant Frosted Steel? Come on, this is serious.
I think I'm probably Desert Wind.
Captain Desert Wind. Okay, well, that brings...
Because you'd remember Desert Wind.
You would, yes. That's got a nice sound to it. Well, I hope despite that, I hope you'll be back next week to talk to us some more about Terrahawks and other things.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Why not?
Why not? You're stuck here anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, John Lee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speed 200 knots, sir.
Right. Ask missile control for routine report. Thunderbirds are go.
Parker, you call the lady? Land sighted, the lady. I think it's the island.
Very well, Parker. Have they contacted us yet?
A bloke named Tracy was on the radio.
Quiet, Parker.
Shall I shoot it down with the cannons, milady?
No, Parker. For one thing, you wouldn't succeed. And for another, there's no need.
Thunderbirds are go.
Nosy Parker is go. Where's the handbrake? Going left. Oh no!
Jeff is going to have to disguise Tracy Island.
Exactly.
So they turn the pictures around, don't they?
Now pay attention, please.
One of Brain's more recent modifications to the mole allows it to function underwater.
Zoom, the Big Eyes Lolly with 3 flavor stages.
Stand by for Cool Off with Lion's Mane.
It really is a big one this time, boys. You heard the details?
After the chaotic end to the first half of your interview, Let's go back to Terrahawks again. Talk me through like an average day in the Terrahawks model department, if indeed there was such a thing.
Wow. So we're going back a long way, going back 40 years. Well, 41 years, actually. So the average day would have been arriving... Probably we started work probably about 8:30, quite late in modern times. We now would start perhaps slightly earlier. We'd have a bit of breakfast, start work in the workshop. We would either have a chat with Nick Finlayson, who was the head of department. He would tell us what we were doing, or we would be carrying on with what we were doing the day before. We'd always have a kind of idea of when that work had to be finished. The workshop was a fun place. It was noisy. It was sort of loud, even though there weren't many of us in there. And there'd be people popping in every so often, people from the effects stage, Gary Tompkins running down with another drawing or another set of scripts. We all were given scripts in those days, unlike on some of the movies I've worked on recently. You never see a script. So we'd get the script, and then straight away I would just start reading through the script and looking for the special effects sequences to see what was coming up, because the scripts usually arrived maybe 4 or 5 weeks before we were actually shooting, so not long. So I'd often have 2 or 3 jobs on the go at the same time, something that was maybe needed very quickly, something that was a project for a week's time, and then a long-term project that might be a month away perhaps. We'd have lunch in the canteen. There was a lovely sort of Bray Studios canteen full of wholesome food and puddings. And we'd finish, what time did we finish? Technically around about 5:30, I believe. But most of us stayed around in the bar, or we'd stay around in the workshop, finishing a few things off. I don't recommend that these days, but we did that. We were young and we were enthusiastic. We'd stay in the bar, and then the workshop, because it was warm. It was warmer than, going back to a sort of accommodation.
That makes all the difference, yeah. I've got some scripts from Terrahawks, and a couple of them are marked model departments or similar. Yeah. So were there any sort of, we hear the story for the Supermarionation show, sometimes there was rivalry between the puppet people and the effects people. Was there anything like that at Bray on Terrahawks?
Not that I recall. I think we were all really excited because Terrahawks was the first of a new generation of series since Space 1999. And it wasn't that long after Space 99 had finished shooting. So we were very aware, I was, that this could be the start of something quite long-term. So there was great friendships made. Most of us were quite young. There was a splattering of more mature people on the team. They were only in their 40s perhaps at the time, but... No, I wasn't aware of that. There was lots of crossover between, I remember people like Des Saunders coming into the workshop. He was directing Close Call, I think, and he was shooting a cockpit from the Overlander and came to the workshop. He needed to know where that cockpit was on the miniature because he'd got no sense of that. So we were showing him that. That was exciting to be talking to Des Saunders. He directed some of the best episodes of some of the earlier shows. And the same with Alan Patillo. So the people were walking in and out of the workshop all the time. It was very exciting. Ian Scoons was there as well. It was fun.
Well, speaking of early days, we're now going to play a clip, one of your favourite Anderson scenes or characters. And I think this can be classed as a character. You alluded to it last time. It's a large yellow vehicle with giant claws. Let's take a look at this.
It's in the village.
Right. Get the heck out of there. If that processing plant gets jammed with bricks and mortar, they'll hear the bang 100 miles away. So beat it.
I'll get over to the dam site and see what I can do there.
Well, exciting stuff there, dramatic stuff there from the episode Path of Destruction. I gather the Crablogger is one of your favourite vehicles from Thunderbirds?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just so exciting, isn't it? It's so big. It's got Caterpillar tracks. It pushes things over, cuts trees down. It's just such a nice miniature.
And it just keeps going past the camera just when you think you've got to the end. Oh, no, there's another whole bit stuck on the back. But that brings us to something that I believe was perhaps an issue with early episodes of Terrahawks. We saw there with the Crablogger that it all looked very dirty and very real. Was it right that there was some concerns in the early days of Terrahawks that the Terrahawks vehicles didn't quite look as real and dirty as they perhaps should have done?
You've done your research, haven't you?
I'm afraid so.
So, yes, there was. So the main craft of Terrahawks, Battlehawk, Hawkwing, Treehawk, etc., they were I had no involvement in those until quite late on. And they were finished and painted to a very high spec. They were beautifully artworked. They were very glossy. They resembled shop window aircraft display models. And they would have photographed really badly on screen. And it was quite worrying at the time. Bandai Toys had been over and photographed them all to make toys, so there was a commitment to these vehicles, but they just didn't look real. They looked nowhere near as real as the things that we were used to seeing on Space 1999 and Thunderbirds and things. And I think word got back to Gerry at some point that this could be a problem, and myself and Steve Woodcock were called up to his office. Steve Begg was there, I think, at the time, and the conversation went along the lines of, what can you do to make these look a little bit more realistic? Now, this was a tricky thing to have at the time because, we were quite new to professional model making, but I knew exactly what needed to be done. But it meant retrofitting certain parts, and certainly it meant respraying them and dirtying them down with various browns and blacks, putting panel lines on to make them look a bit more believable. They had no scale, so they would have photographed terribly badly. So I think everybody was a little bit worried. So myself and Steve got to re-detail all the main craft. And we had to do it very quickly because, we were minutes away from shooting. Well, not minutes, but, days away from actually turning over on them. I repainted, dirtied down, and put little bits of letraset and wording, just to try and break up the surfaces which had no detail. We couldn't alter the shape in any way, so I felt, and still do, that they didn't quite match the concept designs that Steve Begg had drawn up initially. There were no recessed panels with engineering and details. There was none of that. And, of course, it was too late to put that in. So my feeling is the main craft, we sort of missed out slightly on that. They weren't what they could have been. But that's my opinion, and other people might love them.
It seems like such a simple, almost obvious idea, but it does add so much, all that extra detail. You weren't just involved with designing and building vehicles. There were also several model sets you worked on, interiors and exteriors. I'm thinking of the Zeroid Barracks here. Were you involved with that?
Yes, I was involved in that. So Gus Ramsden did a drawing of the Zeroid Barracks very early on, and it was a complex miniature. It was around sort of 8 feet by 4 feet, and it was built on a gimbal so that we could shoot live action, all the Zeroids rolling in and out of their various channels. It was a very complicated thing, strange, unusual angles. So it would have taken a few weeks to build that. But nevertheless, something that I'd not really done much of before, following other people's designs as such. The Zeroid Barracks, I built the Thunderbirds recording studios, which features in a few episodes. And again, that was quite angular. Again, Gus Ramsden, I think, drew that. But that was nice, building something slightly more architectural, because I was keen as a model maker to, fulfill my dreams of making spaceships and, crazy vehicles, but also, widening my skill base and being able to build other things, to have a career as a as a modeler. So it was always exciting to build other vehicles. The Mars base was another one we talked about last week. And other, the Callisto base from one of the episodes, can't remember the title.
The Spirilla, I think.
Spirilla,
yes,
was
with
it? The one that
rotating dish thingy.
Yes, overhangs the ice planet.
Yeah.
So that was something else we built from plastic containers and kit parts and things. So it was nice to swap and change.
Well, you mentioned Anderson Records there. That's another interesting building because it always seemed to be shot from pretty much the same angle at roughly the same distance, and you didn't get a sense on screen of the detail that I know was in there because there's some behind-the-scenes footage close up on like pot plants outside and markings of reception and signs pointing visitors in all sorts of directions. So again, there's a lot more detail in those some of those vehicles and props than was seen on screen.
Yes, there are, and you've really done your research. So yeah, thanks. So when you're working on this kind of work, there is a sketch, and so you know roughly what you're making. But that sketch may not necessarily have those details that you've just talked about, which are really important for the audience to engage with because it's all about scale. And those things, the signs, the litter bins, the potted plants, I have pictures in my portfolio of those because they're important storytelling elements. And those are the things that make all the shows that we're talking about look real. Those were the things that the model makers did in the 60s and 70s. And without that level of detail, the shots don't work. They look even more modelly, which is why certain episodes, certain shows are less successful because it's the attention to detail that some people forget or are not aware of. You have to put that work in the work. It's also exciting.
Well, there's a sequence I'd like to play now that I believe reinforces the importance of attention to detail in a vehicle that even people who aren't 100% keen on Terrahawks often say, "Cool, that's a gorgeous vehicle." We have a clip here from the episode Thunder Path.
Whoever you are, watch out. Here I come. Fire!
So a superb sequence there from Thunder Path. I gather you were involved with that sequence as well?
Yes, so I was one of the model makers that built the Overlander. Myself and Steve Woodcock built the three sections, and Peter Bahana worked on the wheel assembly, again because of Peter's experience with radio control. So essentially three of us made that. It was all, we had a rough concept sketch from Steve Begg. It was all carved in Jellytong, which is a pattern maker's wood. It was incredibly heavy, and then detailed with various acrylics and plastics, and myself and Steve painted that. It was quite long and had elasticated connecting sections between the three units so that the vehicle could move and stretch. The wheels were built on a rubber assembly so that it could hug the terrain and look like the crab logger. Essentially, we were trying to recreate a more modern version of the crab logger. And we were there setting up on set with that. The bridge had been made, I believe, by Nick Finlayson's company. I think it was slightly outsourced. So Nick and Anton designed a way of collapsing that bridge, which was actually quite clever in that there were two metal poles that were pulled apart through the inside of the structure. So it collapsed from the inside out. It was actually quite a clever trick. So there was no way the vehicle could travel over that without it collapsing. And then, it was a little bit disheartening to see that sort of crash to the ground. And then And it came back to the workshop quite bruised and battle damaged, and blistering of paintwork. It was quite brutal. And we kind of rubbed it down and resprayed bits, and we threw it back on set, and we probably did it 2 or 3 times. But yeah, that was a really exciting shot that we've just seen, and again, testament to the kind of detail and the attention to detail, trying to make it look realistic and trying to give the audience the same kind of feeling that I would have had when I watched Thunderbirds.
Oh, it's pure Anderson, that bit. I mean, you talk about attention to detail. I love the sound design on that as well, particularly the little bits of metal at the end.
I know. Well, we all know the sound effects editing and the sound design, and Barry Gray's music on the earlier Thunderbird shows it's 50% of what you're seeing. But sound effects editing plays a big part in Gerry's shows, and I was always really excited about that.
Fantastic stuff. Well, I've spent the week learning how to open our Space 1999 lunchbox containing listener questions. Mainly the trick is don't close the lunchbox. Would you like to dig into some more Podsterons questions? Yes, please.
It's a whole week since we've done this,
yes.
Isn't it? So this question's from Jeff Tilley.
Hello, Jeff.
What movies did you grow up on that were interesting for you, and the model and effects work? I had a real passion for animation when I was very young, so the work of Ray Harryhausen was really high on my kind of barometer. So Jason and the Argonauts, Mighty Joe Young, King Kong, Mysterious Island, all those early Harryhausen movies were really exciting for me to watch, because it was, what we have to remember now in 2023 is this work was at the top of its game. Nobody was doing this before Ray Harryhausen. It was totally unique, and it just sparked something off in me as a young sort of viewer, wanting to know how this was done. And I'd be hearing stories from my parents and my uncle saying, "Oh, it's a thing called animation," and I think, right, how does that work? And just trying to learn about that. So those Harryhausen movies were a big thing in my young life. Movies like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, all the Irwin Allen TV shows, Land of the Giants, Batman, the original Batman series, and of course all Gerry and Sylvia's work through the 60s. So that's what I was watching, pretty much all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great answer. So were you involved with Terrahawks until its bitter end after 39 episodes, or did you leave? And I believe you did leave and ended up working. You did leave. I'm going to tell you your life story rather than you answer.
I have left.
You ended up working with some other former Century 21 effects alumni over at Clearwater Features.
That's right. So I joined in '82, and I think I did about a year there at Bray Studios. I did leave. I wanted to sort of expand my kind of repertoire, as it were. I wanted to learn more about commercial model making. I was sad to leave, but I left and went to work at Clearwater Films in Battersea in South London. So I'd done some research before that, and went for interview, and it was an incredible place to work. Again, quite small scale, but with about 3 or 4 shooting stages and 3 or 4 directors working full time. So Ken Turner and Dave Mitten were the 2 owners of Clearwater, and they're Anderson alumni. Dave Mitten working in the special effects department, and Ken Turner directing. So they were the 2 kind of heads. Dave Lane was one of the producers and directors there, so I met Dave. Obviously, he directed the 2 feature films, Thunderbirds feature films, and many other shows. And other directors. So I was working on animated commercials, mainly, working with a model-making team down there, working on very quick-fire TV commercials, learning lots of new skills, and working in the commercial world, and earning a little bit more money, which was nice at the time.
Makes all the difference, yeah. I don't suppose you remember what your last episode of Terrahawks was, necessarily.
One of the last things that we were shooting, I remember, was the episode, and you'll probably tell me, it was the space shuttle launching
from
a sort of launch pad the Launchpad was a hodgepodge of various other things that I'd made, and then I made the pod itself. I think that was the last thing we were shooting. So from my memory, but it is 41 years ago.
Operation SAS, which I think is about the 15th or 16th episode produced. Have yourself another question out of our listeners' box there.
Question.
Yes.
Here we go. So this is from Richard Goodburn. What changes to the Thunderbirds 2004 movie vehicle designs would you have liked to have done from the finished product? The Thunderbirds movie comes in for a lot of stick.
It does,
I think,
yes.
Which is interesting. And I actually quite like it. It was an incredible film to work on. Jonathan Frakes was a wonderful director to work with, and he directed some of the model unit things as well. Mm-hmm. So we had an amazing crew on that film. It felt like a big budget film. It didn't feel exactly like Thunderbirds.
No.
And the audience, I think, the fans certainly also thought that. But it does come in for a bit of bad press. But I don't know. I like it. I think what we forget is that sometimes you have to just kind of leave things alone. And if you're going to remake movies and series, you have to either change them completely or copy them exactly. That sort of grey area is a very difficult thing to pull off. But there were some really nice sequences in that film. I worked on an oil rig sequence at the beginning. I think the CGI vehicles were superb. I'm not sure I would have changed the designs, actually. No. I think I'd probably I don't know what I'd have done. I haven't really answered your question, Jeff, if it was Jeff, but I wouldn't have altered the designs.
No.
It was a really exciting thing to work on and helped me in my career at the time because I met a whole bunch of new people and we did other films together after that.
Well, we're now going to play you a scene from the 2004 Thunderbirds movie. Some of our viewers love the film, some of them hate the film, some of them are indifferent. It's, as you say, a very polarising film, but let's take a look at this scene.
Thunderbirds just a few minutes ago. They should be here any moment now. And here they are.
Thunderbird 2, this is Thunderbird 1. I have visual south column. They're trapped on an inspection platform.
FAB, we'll take it from here. Scott, get out of there. That tower's coming down.
Got it.
Thunderbird 1, any damage?
Negative, Dad.
Come on. Swing around. Can't get close enough taking that approach angle.
Approach angle's no good. You're gonna have to swing her around.
Watch for wind shear, Thunderbird 2.
Scotty, I was watching for wind shear when you were still wearing diapers.
Come on, Dad.
Whoa, hold on.
Who needs the diapers now, Dad?
What do they do now?
Probably drop the rescue platform from Thunderbird 2.
Open them up. Here we go. Rescue platform's on its way.
Virgil, how's it going?
It's looking good, Dad.
Well, the classic line, "Who needs the diapers now, Dad?" leads us on to your post-Terrahawks career, which of course includes the Thunderbirds movie. And you have fond memories of that, as you said. What else have you gone on to since Terrahawks, or even since Thunderbirds and Clearwater?
So after Thunderbirds, I think I did AVP, Alien vs. Predator, again with Bill Pearson, and movies like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I worked on 2 Harry Potter movies for CineSite, which was a company down at Shepperton. And CineSite had a huge workshop, big team of people. So I did The Half-Blood Prince and The Order of the Phoenix. I did Thomas the Tank Engine at Shepperton Studios, which was a wonderful gig to get. And other movies, I've done The Martian, which is another Ridley Scott film. Moon, obviously, we talked about that, and some of the recent Star Wars films.
So it still continues to this day?
Yeah.
And do you ever find yourself on the set of, say, the latest Star Wars, whatever, and think, oh, I learnt this trick back on Terrahawks, or there's something that they did in Thunderbirds, and I can use this in what I'm working on at the moment?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think I'm very lucky to be working, very lucky to be able to work, and I'm still excited at the concept of working in the industry. You never stop learning, and you know there are always more clever people in the room than you are. So I'm a firm believer in, if people have got better ideas, those are the ideas that you go with. You don't necessarily go your own route. You have to share that kind of commonality. Yeah, I'm very lucky to be working, and you're always thinking, yes, we've done this before, but slightly different. So the nice thing about working as a modeler, designer, whatever, is that you never make the same thing twice. You make something similar to what you've done before. So you go into your brain and your kind of muscle memory, and you think, well, it's kind of a bit like this, but different. And I find that quite exciting.
So before we move on to our final game, which will be the end of the interview, our game Cute Mute Recruit, which we'll explain in a moment, I gather you've brought something along with you today, a memento from your Terrahawks days.
I have. Would you like to see it?
I would love to see it. Is it over there and we didn't bring it?
It's over here.
It's down there, is it? Okay,
so
well, you don't have to get up there.
I can stay seated.
What's this?
I won't be wearing this, so I don't know whether the viewers can see that. But that
that's lovely.
That is my Terrahawks crew sweatshirt, which was given to us as a gift. I'll turn it round, and I will hit the microphone. So, and yes, we all wore those, and I still have it 41 years later. So there you go. That's what I brought along today.
Oh, it's lovely to see that. Do you have any other souvenirs from that time? Or
I have a T-shirt as well, and I have one or two bits and pieces. I've got my scripts, obviously. I've kept those, and call sheets and things like that. So I've kept most of those throughout my career.
Lovely. So we have a game called Cute, Mute and Recruit. We are building our own international rescue organisation, and we ask each of our guests firstly to have a look at the 3 cards that our previous guest picked. You have to decide which of these characters you would, firstly, which you think is cute, which you would mute, and which you would recruit for our international rescue organisation.
Cute, mute, recruit.
Yes, indeed.
Right,
so first up, we have a card that's upside down. If I rotate it, we have this chap. This is a robot from Supercar and later repurposed for Fireball XL5. Cute, mute, or recruit?
Mute.
Mute. We don't want to hear from him. He just wants to destroy things. That's fine. So we have a choice of cute or recruit. We have a minor character from Thunderbirds. It's Scott Tracy. Do you want him on your international rescue force?
We need Scott Tracy.
We need Scott Tracy.
Everyone needs Scott Tracy.
Is this an official, we're recruiting Scott Tracy?
We are definitely recruiting him.
Okay. Well, I've manoeuvred you into a trap here, because this last person, by definition, has to be cute.
Cute.
It's the snake from Space Precinct, this reptilian extortionist who had acid for blood. So there you go.
Okay.
You think he is cute. We'll leave that there.
Thank you.
And now it's your turn to make 3 selections for our next guest, or perhaps we should say victim. Pick 3 cards out of there at random.
Oh, at random?
At random,
so
and
I'm
don't
not
show
allowed
them. No, I mean, you can look at them, but as long as the camera doesn't see.
This is all happening live.
This is very live and very well rehearsed, and this is for our next guest.
Do we know who the next guest is then?
I believe someone does, but I personally I'm not privy to that information.
Okay.
So you now know who they will be faced with in the next episode. Good selection there?
Really good selection.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to them getting a go on that next time.
Right.
So if our listeners want to find you online or follow your latest projects, where can they do that?
So they can find me on Twitter, John Lee Rocky Road, I believe. I'm also at the National Film and Television School. So have a look at the website, look up NFTS Model Making, where I run a course teaching young students model making and prop making skills so that they can go into the industry.
Ladies and gentlemen, our thanks to John Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.